No, but again, right? So okay, so thank you for all coming up. We're about to get started on the next debate. Thank you.
Yeah, I promise to be fair. I promise to be fair.
Dude, that profile pic change is epic.
Had to match your badass energy.
Okay. So yeah, we're ready to go. Okay, let's see. So, um, hello everyone. We're going to continue on to our next debate, and it's going to be Sinleth, a newcomer, versus Heisenblurb on is there an intelligent designer to biological life? Yeah, we can start it now. The affirmative is going to go first. So Heisenblurb, um, you're gonna get 7 minutes for your opener, and then Sinlith is gonna go after you, and then we will continue to cross examination. So I will put a 7 minute timer on.
I got it.
you.
I got it. Yep, I got it.
Cool. And it starts whenever you say your first word.
See the timer? Or do I have to do that myself?
No, you see it. You see it.
It's right above your head. On your
okay.
logo.
Oh, wait, it started. Can we restart it?
Yeah, I restarted. I restarted for you. I started. Yeah, I restarted for you.
And you are a little bit muffled. I would say get closer to your mic.
Okay, I'll do my best. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start if we're ready.
All right, you go ahead when you say your first word.
So, I'm...
You're a little bit muffled.
So, I think it would be easy... Shoot. Is it too muffled for me to continue?
No, it's good. Is that good?
Okay, I'll just
Yeah, I
type it
think
right
he's
up
good.
to
I think
my
he's good. I think he's good.
face.
He's
Yeah.
good. He's good. I'm gonna restart it for him. Just say
All right.
sound check. Okay, so go ahead. All right, make say your first word. I'm gonna
Third time's the charm.
go ahead.
So I think in this debate it would be easy to lose focus and make it a debate about evolution. I probably will critique that view, but primarily I'm focused on the positive case for design. And the positive case breaks down into three areas: the unique effects of design, successful predictions of design, and design as a productive scientific heuristic. All of these things, I think, point to the reality that biology was designed. So first, the effects. DNA has several effects. It contains digital code per Yaki, Dawkins, Barbieri, etc. It also contains language. This is an argument I used to reject until recently. A paper in Icarus describes mathematical patterns of language that appear in DNA. A fairly somewhat recent paper in Computational Biology Journal explains that DNA also has the architecture of an embedded computing system. And another effect in DNA that I think is kind of spooky is punctuation. Genes are bookended by stop and start codons, so it's not as though nature plucked meaning out of random jumble of base pairs, but rather something went in and delineated the meaningful parts. I just find that spooky. We could also talk about machines, although there might be some definitional issues there. I think when you have a system of well-matched parts that perform a repeatable function and it corresponds to human designs, that to me seems like a signal of intelligent cause. Another major effect of design is top-down topologies. Nature builds things from the bottom up, like Darwin's tree, but designers don't have the same constraints. They can roll something off the assembly line, complete with entirely new structures and novel features. Fossils exhibit this top-down topology. It is actually the case that higher taxa appear first and later diversify into the lower taxa, so that's a top-down picture. Phylogenetics is a similar way, where complex systems, it turns out, are ancestral to the simpler systems, like the flagellum and the T3SS. So another effect is that biological systems actually are abstracted. So in other words, we see ideas being implemented that transcend their specific instantiations. I'm looking at a paper in Entropy which describes kidney tubules in the many ways those manifest. So you have totally different methods achieving the same structural goals. And these authors of this paper actually argue for cognition playing a role. It's actually a version of ID, intelligent design, appearing in the peer-reviewed literature. So these are effects of design that appear in biology. Now, design has also made successful predictions. The naturalistic bottom-up view predicted that the more complex flagellum would descend from the simpler type 3 secretion system. This turned out to be false. And the design prediction that the more complex flagellum came first and degraded into the secretion system, that turned out to be true, according to a paper I'm looking at in PLS Genetics. Another successful prediction, Forrest Mims, a design proponent, predicted based on his engineering background that repetitive elements in the genome were not junk, but served a specific function, which he predicted. Meanwhile, naturalistic view coined the term junk DNA. And then a third prediction, this actually comes from Dawkins. We call it the Dawkins test. He predicted that if biology was had a naturalistic cause, then phylogenetics would produce a consistent tree. And if it was designed, then the tree would look more like a web, because designers can design things in a modular way. I'm looking at numerous papers from bioinformatics, PNAS, etc., which say that the tree of life from phylogenetics is a fiction. Winston Ewart, a computer scientist and design proponent, modeled phylogenetic data as a dependency graph, and it corresponds to that model, which is used to describe modular software. That fits phylogenetics by orders of magnitude better than a naturalistic view. Design is also a productive heuristic in science, and not only that, but a better heuristic than the naturalistic view. Systems biology applies human engineering concepts to biological systems. I'm looking at a study in the Journal of Molecular Evolution, which states that the uniformity of glycolytic pathways is poorly correlated to common descent. In that model, it underestimates homologs, but in a systems engineering analysis, this enables detection of deep homologs. So design corresponds to reality. Returning again to junk DNA, I think I actually already went over this, but it's another great example where the design perspective was heuristically productive, because Mims predicted not only function, but the specific function based on his engineering. And meanwhile, the naturalistic view predicted that these things would be junk. A paper in Science says that junk DNA for many years repelled mainstream researchers from studying non-coding DNA. So not only is the naturalistic view not as good of a heuristic as design, but it's actually been an impediment to scientific discovery. Now, at the Dover trial, Kenneth Miller stated that evolution works in biology because that's how life happened. I say that engineering works well in biology, and in fact better than the naturalistic view, because life was designed. If that logic is good enough for Kenneth Miller, it's good enough for this design proponent. And that's my opening statement.
We'll end it there. And with that, we will go on to the next opening statement, which is going to be Sinleth for 7 minutes. Oh, oops, my bad.
No, wait. Why you bring him up? Don't bring him up. I'll keep going. Okay, all right. I'm gonna put the countdown on Synthlis. Go ahead. Just let me know.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can put it up.
Yeah, no. Let's start whenever you say your first word. Go ahead.
Yeah, today I'm going to negate the claim that there is an intelligent designer to biological life. This statement takes the stance that rather than being products of naturalistic forces or randomness, there are some features of the natural world that lead to the conclusion that an intelligent designer played a role in their formation. And I plan on rejecting this proposition in principle. First, I hold that everything that exists in the natural world either exists in its energetically most favorable conformation, meaning that its features are just expected given the current conditions under which it exists, or that its features can be explained by some antecedent selective set of conditions or forces. For example, the necessity of some specific function to explain the persistence of an object through an unfavorable environment. Intelligent design relies on the assumption that things which are ordered and complex require a designer. By ordered here, we specifically mean ordered to some functional end, but whenever we identify functions and objects, it does not necessarily follow that that function is a result from an intentional act of agency. We witness new functional constructs as a result of selective environmental pressures all the time. A striking example is how cancers invent novel protein machinery that helps them circumvent therapeutic interventions and survive conditions previously thought to be impossible, like high levels of local radiation. And appealing to complexity really gets us nowhere. After all, it's just a term that appeals to the limitations of human cognition. And as such, any claim about perceived complexity in biological systems, if taken as motivation to believe in a creator, is unconvincing. Proponents of intelligent design like to conclude that objects could not have been produced by any relevant chance hypothesis. And this is usually supported through calculations of improbability. And this will be based on spontaneous random assembly. So stated more bluntly, what this really means is that the method first involves assuming the absence of some evolutionary forces leading the object to its final conclusion, and then just proving the impossibility of spontaneous assembly. This tiptoes towards several logical fallacies, such as arguments from ignorance, incredulity, or even holding the belief that the natural world should somehow conform to the limits of human cognition. Furthermore, intelligent design operates under the guise of being scientific and rational, but it appears to be neither. Science operates under a system of falsifiability. It hypothesizes relationships between observed variability. It hypothesizes relationships between observed variables. Then, through a system of intervention, it tests whether manipulating one variable leads to a change in the other. This is fundamentally how causation is separated from correlation. Intelligent design just simply assumes causation from correlation. And there is no measurement or observation that could confirm or disconfirm it. And then it fallaciously assumes that if a naturalistic explanation is lacking or improbable, that the default position would be intelligent design. And so I ask, what is and is not designed? Is it the process or the product? I can understand how you can analyze a product for ingenuity, but I can't understand how you would analyze a process and how you would distinguish which forces belong to it and which don't. And if we limit our conversation to the products, I ask, why have so many products lacked function? Or perhaps, why do we observe some things containing functional components that simultaneously act in opposing fashion, such as the presence of both tumor suppressors and oncodrivers in every single biological organism we can isolate? Perhaps the word intelligent is misleading. My opponent probably never claims perfection or omniscience as properties of the designer. In which case, how does a defender of intelligent design differentiate between objects designed by naturalistic forces and those designed by an active agency? A necessary feature that separates natural causes from intelligent causes is intentionality. How would you go about proving intentionality? I don't think it's possible to provide definitive answers to these questions without special pleading. I think a lot of these examples are going to be cherry picked. I will have counter examples. I don't think it's possible to show intent, given that the only way to demonstrate intent is either by demonstrating a motive or having the agent outright tell you the intent. I don't think it's possible to defend intelligent design. So, in conclusion, I'm going to reject today's proposition on the grounds that its truth value is untenable.
Thank you. So that will conclude the opening for Sinleth.
Yep, and we can now go on to the cross-examinations. And Heisenblurb is going to get the first cross-examination, and it's going to be 5 minutes.
I'm gonna go to start whenever you say your first word.
Yep.
Okay, I thought that we would do rebuttals, but
Sorry, Heisenblurb. Is it possible to fix your audio? It's just very muffled, and we barely could hear you.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really sorry. Let me hold it to my face. Is that at all better?
I think so. I think that we can deal with that, right? Right, Coco?
Yeah, let's ask the audience. A couple people are saying that their headphones.
Hello, test.
How does that sound for everybody in the audience?
Test.
Are we sounding better?
Any
What do
better?
you guys think? Are
Holding
you
it up to my
Heisenberg?
face.
Are you using a microphone or are you using you going straight to your phone?
I'm going straight to my phone. I don't have a microphone.
I think that sounds good. Actually, no, that's somewhat better. Okay. Yeah,
So
the audience is saying that sounds better. Okay.
okay, clarifying question. Do I
So
get
wait,
to
hold
do
on. Let
any
me just.
rebuttal? And
Oh no, no, yeah. You could either speak the whole five
uh-huh.
minutes. You could ask questions, or you could do a mix of both.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's cool.
So we will
So,
start whenever you say your first word.
all right. So, in my opponent's opening statement, he issued a number of straw men. He characterized design as an argument from complexity. It is not an argument from bare complexity. Anytime that design proponents talk about complexity, it's specific kinds of complexity. Um, and so it would be, we're really talking about specific effects that are a known product of design, not complexity itself. Nobody's inferring design from the complex arrangement of sand on the beach. He also characterized it as an argument from ignorance. I just touched on this because we are not inferring design based on our ignorance. We're inferring design based on what we know about the things that designers produce. And he also characterized the argument as assuming design at the outset. That's incorrect. It starts with observations about the kinds of things that designers do. And then when it observes those effects, it then infers design. So it doesn't start with the assumption, or it doesn't start with its conclusion. So that's it for the straw man, I think. Oh, there is one more straw man, actually, intent. My opponent seems to think that I have to demonstrate intent. I'm not arguing for intent. I'm not a mind reader. I'm arguing for intelligent cause. And the way that I do this is by understanding the things that designers produce and then observing those effects in other contexts, which allows me to infer design. Now he says also, getting away from the straw man, he also says that a lack of function for various things in biology points away from design. But this is a precarious position because you're making a negative claim. How do you prove that something lacks function? And I actually gave some examples in my opener where this was a wrong assumption. And the reason we knew it was wrong is because a design proponent, from his design perspective, predicted not only function, but the specific function for repetitive elements in the genome. So my opponent is committing the same misstep, probably because he is approaching it from a naturalistic view. And the furthest extent to which you can test negative claims like lacking function is to demonstrate that it has function, in which case you would falsify that claim. So I think that's a pretty precarious position to make an argument where all of the most tested examples have been falsified. Let's see, what else do we have here? So you also asked the question, how do you differentiate between design and not design? We do this all the time in archaeology, in forensic pathology, fraud detection. But for some reason, when we talk about design in this context, we get this amnesia as though we have no way of recognizing the effects of design that we're familiar with. I gave numerous examples of effects of design in my opener that we are familiar with, which we observe in biology. That does not license us to infer design everywhere, because we're not saying that everything is a known effect of design, only certain things. There are lots of things out in nature that we haven't observed being the product of design. I'm thinking of metallic crystalline structures on meteors or asteroids. I'm not sure what the correct word would be in that case. We haven't seen that designed. We've seen that as a product of natural forces. So, of course, we can tell the difference. Um, it seems that my opponent doesn't actually have a mechanism from his approach to recognize design if it was true. He seems to say it's unscientific, and what I would suggest is that you ought to be open to the idea of design, or else you would have no way to recognize it, to observe this fact or conclude this fact if it was true. And that to me seems really unscientific. And it seems like a kind of a presumption. And I guess I'll wrap up my cross there.
Okay, thank you. You have 14 minutes left on the clock. Okay, time for Senlith to start his cross-examination. 5 minutes on the clock, and we'll start whenever you say your first word.
Yeah, I'll actually talk directly to Heisenblurb. Look, let's talk about, you brought up DNA as an example of something that demonstrate unique effects of design. I want to make an observation that generally speaking, when humans design things, the designs have like some minimal level of simplicity, right? But DNA has, single tandem repeats, pseudogenes, retroviral components. So the retroviral components here is definitely an example that has no function that is relevant to the organism it's present in, right? So how do you reconcile the presence of all of these components along with DNA demonstrating to you some type of evidence that it was designed?
I think that I have to reconcile that because I don't think it contradicts any of the claims that I've made, but I think you've made some false claims. You said that retroviruses are non-functional. Actually, Richard Sternberg, a design proponent but a very prominent scientist as well, has done experimental work on this, demonstrating that if you interfere with certain retroviruses, that you stop embryogenesis at, I think it was the 4-cell stage. So they're not.
Heisenberg, please
Black.
get closer. Heisenberg, please get closer to your phone. We need you to actually, again, right? You sound like you're underwater. Just please get closer to the phone and try to not sound a little bit muffled, please.
Okay, I'll try to talk louder.
Sounds great now.
Okay, great. So you claimed that retroviruses are non-functional, but Richard Sternberg has demonstrated experimentally that if you interfere, then you stop embryogenesis at, I think it was the 4-cell stage. So I think, again, you are being misguided by your naturalistic view, and it's causing you to make false claims and to misinterpret biological reality, whereas the design view demonstrably, per many examples, gives us a correct interpretation that better corresponds to biological reality.
Okay, so I will acknowledge that endogenous retroviruses exist that serve function, but I'm talking about infectious agents, right? The kind that have oncogenic properties that lead to like the formation of cancer, for example. How do you reconcile the fact that these are definitively present in the human genome? Why would the designer put them there?
I'm still not sure why this contradicts design. It sounds, are you making a moral argument or something like that? Like it's bad design or something like that?
No, well, you could look at that. Like, what would be the purpose of having these elements?
Yeah, so I don't, again, I'm not a mind reader. I don't know the purpose. I don't know the intent. I only know effects of design, like the language properties of DNA, the code properties. It conforms to the Shannon model of information. And so when I see these effects, and I know that in our uniform repeated experience, they're a product of design, I observe them in biology. Design is a reasonable hypothesis, which is, it turns out to be correct in many cases where the naturalistic view is incorrect.
Okay. Look, I really don't feel like that was an answer. So let me move to a different example, maybe. So in my introduction, I brought up the fact that every single organism has the presence of both oncogenes and tumor suppressors. Now, this would be expected on a naturalistic worldview, right? That perhaps an oncogene was somehow the result of a mutation or some genetic drift, and a tumor suppressor had to be developed such that an organism could continue to survive. Could you explain to me why an intelligent designer would put this system in nearly every single organism?
I'm not really familiar with that particular system. I'm not really sure how it contradicts. Can you clarify how it contradicts design? What
Yeah,
is the
I
contradiction?
can, yeah, I can clarify. One of those exists solely for the termination of life, and one of them suppresses that system.
Well, I mean, I think that different biological systems compete with each other.
The audience wants you to speak up a little bit.
This is inside of the same organism. There's no competition.
Well, I mean, in different biological contexts, different things happen, right? Like apoptosis, for example, only happens sometimes. So I would suspect that there are
Well,
different environmental
apoptosis only
conditions.
gets rid of one cell. This gets rid of the whole organism. Why would this exist?
Well, I don't know the reason why for everything. You're saying it unalives the entire organism?
As
Oh, you're talking about the cancer. Well, I mean, one interpretation is that it could be a degradation of an original design. I think that's true for some things like bubonic plague, where a flagellar motor degraded into a secretion pump, and now you have this really bad disease.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the specific example you're talking about, but you know, I don't know why is an okay thing to say. It doesn't change the positive reasons for design. I really don't see how it contradicts just because you can't imagine why. The same way you couldn't imagine why certain things in junk DNA would have function.
Okay, that concludes the cross examination for Sinleth. We're going on to the second cross examination for Heisenblurb.
Okay, let's see here.
We'll start whenever you say your first word.
All right. So I think this kind of came up, but saying I don't know is not really a problem in science. Would you agree?
think that when it's motivation to take my worldview as opposed to yours, it's a huge problem for you.
Okay, but if like for example, if you don't know how a naturalistic view explains something, like for example, the code structure of DNA or how it has the architecture of an embedded computing system, if you don't have a naturalistic explanation for that, that wouldn't really be a problem from your perspective. You don't think?
Well, the problem is me not being able to like give you a naturalistic account of exactly how those features came to be. Um, it's different than you having a completely contradictory system saying that some intelligent designer created something to function for some reason when two contradictory features that oppose the only reason they could possibly exist for, right? That we're talking about biology after all. So we're talking about the persistence of life. So the contradiction I presented in front of you seems fatal.
Okay. Again, I don't see the contradiction. I don't see how it takes away from the positive evidence. I think you're assuming function, or you're assuming dysfunction, or you're assuming a contradiction. I think there probably could be other contexts for that. But let's see here. All right, so let's talk about micro and macro evolution. Do you think that they're the same thing at different scales?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I haven't thought about it that much, but that does appear. My intuition says that's true.
Right, okay. So, yeah, I'm just pinpointing where we agree or disagree here.
I get
So,
closer to your mic a little bit.
all right, so from my perspective, I would say that macro evolution, where you have novel features, um, it requires design. So my claim would be macroevolution is more than just repeated rounds of microevolution. Is that a claim that you would disagree with? That you're
Maybe.
naturalistic?
Could you give me an example of a design that is present at the macroevolution level?
Of design, well, I can give you an example. I can give you examples of novel features, like the trilobite eye. um, walking appendages, penadactylism, etc.
Okay, but I mean, I would argue that the same exact type of forces lead to the formation of those that would lead to that formation on like a micro level as well, right? So, like for example, you brought up the example of the bacteria flagella and the um, injectosome, right? It's a repurposing of some stuff based on the need of the bacteria rather than be, motility required self-defense. I take the same thing that, perhaps fins were repurposed to wings or something like that. I don't really understand what the difference would be there in terms of the mechanism of how it happened.
Okay. Um, let's see here. I'm very disorganized. I'm sorry. All right, so let's see. So if life was designed, how would you know? I'm curious about that. I know we only have a few more seconds.
Oh, I don't think it's possible to know. I think the entire proposition is nonsensical.
Okay, and you don't think that's a science-stopping position?
No, I think regardless if that position was true or false, absolutely nothing would change.
So you don't think that there would be effects that you could recognize? So like when designers make predictions about the flagellar motor being ancestral because of their top-down view, you don't think that that's an effect, and you don't think that that prediction actually happened?
Um,
Um, I I think that people can get correct predictions and maybe mimic things artificially in a laboratory setting, but I don't really see that as motivation for intelligent design.
sorry about this, but try to get a little bit closer to your mic, Heisenblurb. Sorry that we keep saying it, but it just keeps going like
No, I'm
low.
sorry.
But
Yeah, I don't know why it
Just
did
just be
that.
loud as possible. Like speak with your, as much voice that you can, and just speak into the phone.
To be honest, like, you could even slightly yell into your mic.
Okay, can you hear me?
I,
Um,
I I've got you turned all the way up, buddy. I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
and AR, should we give them like 1 more minute or 2 more minutes for a cross examination?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, yeah. I feel like that would work. Yeah, yeah, so
Well,
definitely.
hold on. I haven't had my second one yet.
Yeah.
um,
No, no, I know that. I know that. I mean,
yeah, we kind of interrupted a little
it's
bit
just that yeah, we interrupted Heisenberg because his microphone
with
is
the
just
audio.
very.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Up to you, Heisen. If you want another 2 minutes, I'm planning on just talking to you about DNA again. So if you want to just get
Yeah,
to
yeah.
that.
I'll give him a minute. We'll give him a 1 minute.
One
Like,
minute.
right? Yeah, yeah. 1 minute, and then Heisenberg, go ahead, start, and just be loud. Just scream if you have to. Just yell.
I took off my Bluetooth headphones, so maybe that'll help.
That's actually so much
This
better. Oh
is
my
so
god,
much
this is
better.
great.
Oh, jeez.
Hold on,
That is
we're gonna restart the
beautiful.
timer, but I wish you would have done that from the beginning.
Right
Honestly, this
now,
would have
I'm
been great.
sorry.
Oh my god, I'm gonna give you 2 minutes for that.
Okay.
All right, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I gotta think of what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, yeah. We'll start whenever you say your first word. Go ahead.
All right. So I guess to my opponent, I would ask him, do you know of a specific naturalistic mechanism that produces digital code in accordance with the Shannon model or the mathematical patterns of language? Let's see,
Y- y-
or embedded computing systems or punctuation like the start and stop codons. Have we observed a naturalistic mechanism for producing any of those things?
Well, if I mean, I'm going to argue that DNA is the result of a naturalistic system. So absolutely, the answer is yes. But I'm also going to point out that all of the words that you just used are just human conceptualizations of what it is that you're analyzing, right? You are projecting what you interpret out of something as to what it is. And we're going to keep talking about this, so don't worry about the time running out. We're just going to probably talk about DNA for the rest of the time here because I have a lot more to say on this. But please use your time.
Oh yeah, I mean I didn't hear a naturalistic explanation for these things. It sounds like you're hand waving and saying natural selection, but I think there are good reasons for population genetics to doubt that. I think there are some other reasons as well, like for example, modifying gene regulatory networks is usually fatal to an organism. You can get modifications in other parts of the genome which are expressed later, but this is a barrier to the mechanism that I think you're proposing. But again, it doesn't sound like you have a specific naturalistic explanation for the systems that I outlined in my opener, nor for the top-down topology of the fossil record.
Yeah.
Can you answer that?
Yeah, so the distinction between the top down and the bottom up topology, I think I would just reject altogether because I think that features are selected for based on a functional need and a functional need alone. So I don't think that that distinction really does anything for me. And then regarding DNA, I don't know. Maybe I'll just wait until we start my time, but we can keep talking about DNA.
Oh, and yeah, we can start this will be your second cross-examination. And then
Yeah.
after that, we'll move on to the closers. And yep, you'll get 5 minutes on the clock, and it starts whenever you say your first word.
Yeah, so look, I understand how perhaps as humans, we perceive the DNA to be like some complicated information holding structure. But like, in virtue of what do we arrive at this conclusion, right? Like, it appears to me that the problem is that you are isolating a part of the natural world kind of out of context and passing some judgment because DNA in a vacuum is nothing, right? Every single cell in our body has the same exact set of DNA. And the reason why my muscles are not my nerves and my nerves are not my skin is because there's this entire system of epigenetics that controls what part of the DNA is masked and what part is not, and thereby controls what is available for expression and what is not. And so if information is encoded in the DNA, it's even more so encoded in the epigenome. And if information is encoded in the epigenome, and keep in mind, all we're talking about is like parameters on which interactions can and cannot happen, right? That's what the epigenome does. That's what the DNA does. But notice that's also what like the electron cloud of a single atom does. It sets parameters on what reactions can and cannot happen. And the results of these things we start interpreting as being like some type of act of ingenuity. And so my question then becomes this, is your observation, does this trace down to the atomic level, right? Did the intelligent designer design the single atom? Did he design the electron? Because I could probably start drawing this observation at every stage of existence, from the micro to like the cosmic. So what do you think about that?
I don't think that that's accurate. I don't think that you see the mathematical patterns of language at that micro level
But
or on
that's
the.
a human construct that you are projecting on something.
It's a human description of a reality of
Yeah,
mathematical reality.
people do that with biblical
Architecture.
text too, not just DNA. Like, they find mathematical structure in the biblical text. So what exactly do you think you're pointing at here?
Yeah, so I'm pointing at an effect that is a known product of design, and we don't see that effect being produced in alternative naturalistic means. Same with digital code, same with the architecture of embedded computing systems, same with punctuation or molecular machinery, and same with the top-down topology, which I don't think that you answered at all. What you said was that it's not a problem because there are functional needs, but follow the logic. The function results in an accumulation of traits, right? So that's going to be the Darwinian tree of
No, that's
life, bottom
false.
up.
That's false. That's false. You can lose a trait and gain like the degradation of the flagellum to the spliceosome is a loss, not a gain.
Yeah, that's true. But we're trying to explain the origins of things, right? When you're talking about the naturalistic view. So the way that it originated had to be bottom up based on functional needs, right? So we should see a bottom up topology in the fossil
And
record. We
and I'm
don't.
telling you, sometimes the functional need demands a degradation.
Well, that's
It isn't
true. That is true, but we're asking, where did these things originate from? So they had to accumulate
right, right. So it's not
bottom
just
up.
in one direction, which is, I'm telling you, it's not just in one direction. It goes
That's
up, it goes down.
I understand that, but if you're talking about where did the higher taxa come from, you're expecting them to develop gradualistically over time from lower taxa. But in fact, we observe the opposite, which is an expectation of design.
I'm confused exactly what you're referring to at this point. But look,
Okay.
I have a minute left. Let me just ask you a question. Generally speaking, like if you need to isolate something and prove intelligent design, you're not gonna isolate something that can just easily be able to get explained by like forces, right? It's just statistically super probable, right? So how do you go about discovering whether or not some improbability you want to attribute to intelligent design is actually improbable? Because it appears to me that would require you to have a full understanding of all the naturalistic forces that are at play, right? So, like if I flip a coin 100 times and get 99 heads, but then it turns out that the coin was magnetized and that result was completely expected, well, then
Good question.
you're barking up the wrong tree. Yeah. So, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so like how do you differentiate between chance and design, I guess, kind of?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. William Dembski writes about this, and he actually is kind of asking, where does our intuition come from? And
Finish up your last sentence.
his answer is that the design intuition comes from not just improbability, but improbability coupled with specificity. That is, it resembles an independent pattern in addition to being highly improbable. And that's how we infer things like cheating with magnets and stuff.
Yeah.
With
Can I
that,
just respond real quick to that?
if both of you agree to it, then yeah, I can
It's
allow it.
just a comment. It's not like a rebuttal. I just want to. I was wondering if you were aware of like the absolute beatdown Dembski got on his protein folding calculation because he wasn't aware of like R groups and like how proteins spontaneously folded sometimes. So all of his math of improbability was off by like incredible margins.
About that, but I do know that his design inference, which articulates the thing I just described, was very well received when it was published.
Well, yeah, he was a computational biologist that knew very little
Right,
biology.
that's it,
Turned
folks.
out.
Awesome. Holy shit. Closings, please.
All right, please do the closing.
Yeah.
Heisenblurb, do the closing first. You got 3 minutes on the clock. We'll start whenever you're ready to say your first word.
Good catch, Cage. Good catch.
Your cage is funny, bro.
Okay, so my opponent, I was very interested in some of the things he talked about. I don't understand the contradiction he was trying to articulate. I don't think he really explained why that contradicts design. I think that if there are things that do contradictory functions, that it could be contextual. We see that in other areas. But anyways, I think he didn't give a specific naturalistic explanation for any of the specific effects of design that I laid out, like digital code, language, architecture, embedded computing system architecture, punctuation, machines, the top-down topology, or the fact that biological systems are abstracted. He also had nothing to say about any of the successful predictions like the flagellum and the T3SS or junk DNA or the Dawkins test, which are successful predictions which directly compete with the naturalistic view. He had nothing at all to say about that. So we're just left with successful design predictions contrasted with failed naturalistic predictions. He also had nothing to say about the fact that design is a better heuristic than the naturalistic view, and I gave specific examples, like a paper from the Journal of Molecular Evolution, nor anything to say about how the naturalistic view has demonstrably been a science stopper according to a paper in Science. So I feel like we are left with a plethora of positive evidence for design and a lot of straw men of the design view on the part of my opponent. And I think I'm just going to wrap it up with that.
All right. Thank you, Heisenblurb, for your closer. Moving on to Sinleth. Sinleth will start whenever you're ready to say your first word.
Yeah, I think intelligent design doesn't really have a consistent way of differentiating and recognizing what they would consider design and what would like fit under naturalistic processes. And he claims that I don't have like an account for things that happen or like how exactly something happened. But remember, I told you that that's a major problem with intelligent design is that they take something that lacks an explanation and just assume that they were right to begin with. Um, but uh, I want to point out again that there's constant examples of experiments where we put selective pressures. We do this with bacteria, with cancer, with viruses, and they routinely create new protein machinery, novel protein machinery, never seen before. It's not just a repurposing or something, it's a full rearrangement, fusions, post-translational modifications, things like that. Now, my opponent asked me, why I'm not motivated to believe in intelligent design, and I'll kind of like put it this way: it has to do with the proposition itself, right? Like, first of all, I want to recognize that there's no possible experience that could confirm or disconfirm it, right? Science is falsifiable. We cannot demonstrate the impossibility of its negation. We cannot demonstrate the necessity of intention. There's no measurement, no observation, no deductive argument, no contextual inductive conclusion that can be made that doesn't contradict some type of evidence that already exists. Nothing at all, right? So, what truth value could this proposition hold, and how is it distinguishable from fiction? Right? So if its truth value in a correspondence sense is untenable, then my next question is, what would be the benefit of believing that it's true? I asked my opponent this in one of our crosses, because at least when someone comes up on a panel and tells me Christianity is true, well, it comes with a functional moral system, some hope that helps its believers persist through times of hardship. But intelligent design gives us nothing of value. And so, given these observations, and especially considering that it's a proposition about the external state of the world, I mean, I just take it to be some linguistic expression that has no meaningful cognitive content. I don't think it's true, false, or useful. The only words that I can use to describe it is nonsense. And that's my time.
All right. That should conclude the debate. And we're moving on to the judges and seeing what they say about it.